people. All right, we are in Genesis 8 tonight, still walking through. At this point, Noah, his family, animals, birds, crawling things, cattle, you name it, are in the ark. And the earth, all that's on it, been destroyed by water. I said last week, can you imagine? 100 years it took to build that ark. Noah is basically telling everybody, family, friend, and foe, repent, repent, repent. And they all make fun of him. And then as the water starts to rise, because it's coming not just from above, it hasn't rained before this, but like guys are shooting up from beneath. Noah, let me in. Noah says, sorry, God closed and I can't open it. And so that is kind of where we are. The last verse of chapter 7 says, the water prevailed upon the earth 150 days, which is about 5 months. Actually, it stays totally longer than that, but we're up to that long where they've been in since it started raining up to 5 months later. So chapter 8, verse 1. And before I read that, anybody have any questions about anything so far, what we've covered? I mean, it's kind of plain. I've thrown a few things out there that you may or may not have known. But feel free to ask as we go through. Verse 1 says, but God remembered Noah and all beasts and all the cattle that were with him in the ark. And God caused a wind to pass over the earth, and the water subsided, or really it started to subside. Verse 2, also the fountains of the deep and the floodgates of the sky were closed, and the rain from the sky was restrained. Notice it doesn't say it stops. You know, about a week or so ago, I thought I was going to start looking for some gopher wood, right? He didn't stop it. He just restrained it, as in for a time being. But the fountains, all where it was coming up from the ground, did stop. And the water receded, verse 3, steadily from the earth at the end of 150 days. So that is your 5 months. So 150 days, and it's all gone, or not gone, all it is starting to recede from it. So 150 or 5 months have passed. And then we see verse 4, in the 7th month, on the 17th day of the month, the ark rested on the mountains of Ararat. So 7th month, now you're at 7 months and 17 days. That's a long time to be around a bunch of stinky animals, isn't it? Mount Ararat is, I think that's in the country of modern-day Turkey. Tall mountains. Verse 5, the water decreased steadily until the 10th month. In the 10th month, on the first day of the month. All right, now we've moved forward almost another 2.5 months. First part of the 10th month. The tops of the mountains became visible. Can you imagine that? You know, the Blue Ridge is pretty tall, but you go out to the Rockies, if you've been out there, they're a whole lot taller. And then where the Andes and all the Mount Ararat, they're even taller than the Rockies. And of course, as I said, the ark, as big as it was, remember, 450 feet long, 75 feet wide, 45 feet tall. It took more than 2 or 3 feet of water for that thing to start to float. Probably took more than 10, maybe 20 or more feet before it starts to, you know, do its little thing and float on up. And so if you got the mountains, the ark kind of came to rest in here, but the water was still up there. Then we get down to where you can start to see the tops of the mountains. Verse 6, then it came about at the end of 40 days, or 40 additional days. So then your 10 months and I guess, well, it'd be 11 months and 11 days. Somewhere like that. 11 months, 11 days. Or 10 days, or somewhere in there, because the numbers they kind of confuse, at least it confused me. Maybe you'll get them straight. Came at end of 40 days, Noah opened the window of the ark, which he had made, and he sent out a raven. And it flew here and there until the water was dried up on the earth. Then he sent out a dove from him to see if the water was abated from the face of the earth. And what's the difference between a raven and a dove? Anybody know?
Raven would be black, wouldn't it?
Okay, well, color black and white. Well, anything else that you can know of as a difference between a raven and a dove? Raven, according to my footnote in my Bible, is a scavenger and have no trouble finding food, no qualms about perching on any slimy surface, so it apparently did not return to the ark. A dove would not light in unclean places, so it returned to the ark. It's not going to light where it's slimy and gooey and on the top of an alligator or something, I guess. But a raven has no problems doing that because they're scavengers, or at least that's the category they would fall into. And so the dove comes back, says, no place on the face of the earth, Noah put out his hand, he took her, brought her into the ark to himself. Verse 10. So he, Noah, waited yet another 7 days, and again he sent out the dove from the ark. The dove came toward evening, and behold, in her beak was a freshly picked olive leaf, and Noah knew that the water was abated from the earth. Not necessarily dry. It's kind of like my front yard. It's not dry, but you don't see standing water in it right now. So that's how the earth was. It was still very saturated. And to, think, that's the mountains and the water has come down, and, you got a valley down here. Trees are out there, and it's starting to sprout from the warm sunshine. But it doesn't mean that the water's gone. It could be, maybe a foot or so still up, or, like I said, all the ground very saturated around it. But the dove was able to find an olive branch and to bring it in. Verse 12, he waited another 7 days, sent out the dove. She did not return to him. Now it came about, verse 13, in the 601st year, in the first month, in the first of the month, the water was dried up from the earth. Then Noah removed the covering of the ark and looked, and behold, the surface of the ground was dried up. So if you go back to chapter 7, verse 11, it says Noah was 600 years old, second month, 17th day, and then you see there it is, or we'll soon see, lost it, 601st year, and now we're in the second month, 27th day, so it has been about 1 year and 10 or so days since they were that they were in the ark, about 370 some days, just a little shy or a little more than a year, about a year and a week and a half, a year and 10 days. I was just going to say, now imagine, with the pandemic, it's been a year, just about a year now since stay-at-home orders. And some people have barely, if at all, left their house. Mama has barely left the house, only go to the doctor in that year's time. Now, she could look out and she didn't see rain every day. She could walk outside if she wanted to. How'd you like to be Noah in that ship? You, your wife, your 3 sons, their wives, and a whole bunch of animals of all types, birds included. And you talk about stay at home. Yes, sir.
I got a question.
Yes.
How far from Mount Ararat from where Noah built the ark? Does anybody know?
We don't, I'm going to give you a guesstimation. I don't know exactly where Noah was when he built the ark. They just don't know. They don't know Ararat because that's what the Bible says. And so, you see my beautiful drawing. If this is Turkey, and this is where Ararat is, somewhere in this area, and you go all the way down, you got Lebanon, and then you get down to Israel. So if he was in Israel, or modern day Israel, he floated a pretty good ways. But you have to remember, they were floating for more than, 6 months or so. Well, close to it. Going, rocking back and forth. Man, I've been so seasick. Woo! But I've never heard where he built the ark at. So, good question. If I find out the answer, I'll let you know. So, all right, where are we at? 13,600, first year, first month. Water dried up from the earth, and Noah removed the covering of the ark, and he looked, and behold, the surface ground was dried up. Verse 14, the second month, on the 27th day of the month, the earth was dry. Then God spoke to Noah, verse 15, go out of the ark, you and your wife and your sons' wives with you. Bring out with you every living thing of all flesh that is with you, birds, animals, creeping things that creeps on the earth, that they may breed abundantly on the earth and be fruitful and multiply on the earth. Same thing he told Adam and Eve and all the animals when he created them, be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth. Now, Noah, verse 18, went out, his sons, his wife, sons and wives, all with him. Every beast, creeping thing, everything leaves the ark. Over a year later. And we get to verse 20. Noah built an altar to the Lord and took of every clean animal and of every clean bird and offered burnt offerings on the altar. Now, I tried to point this out. Every picture I ever see, every story, about Noah and the ark and the animals, he took two. One male, one female. But the scripture says of the clean, he took 7. Well, that's why. So he would have them for a sacrifice. So does that mean at this time that he sacrificed 5 of all the clean animals and birds? Or was there sacrifices later? I mean, even for a bird, it takes a while for them to multiply and that bird to grow to full maturity where they can, they can breed. I would say, no, he didn't sacrifice all 5 of all of them because he'd have been there for a long time. But it was for later on to be able to take and save some and to offer them as sacrifices. Now, we also talked about this. What was clean? God tells Moses, when they're wandering, he says, okay, here's what's clean. Choose cud, split hoof. Nowhere did we read where God tells Noah. Does that mean God didn't tell Noah? No. It just means it's not written down. You have to assume that because God told him so many clean for sacrifices, God had to tell him what he considered clean at that time. So, now I could go off the beaten path here and say, where were the dinosaurs? Anybody want to go down that path?
Yeah.
What was that?
But if he let all the animals off, how did he get those to sacrifice?
He put them on there.
He tied them up.
That's what I heard. Because he didn't have time to build a cage.
He already had them cages in the ark.
Give them in the ark.
I don't know. When I get to heaven, I'll ask.
How about doing that? Let me know.
I'll send you a telegram.
Well, did they multiply while they were on the ark?
Well,
Then one year time, the birds.
rats and mice did probably, but it's like I said, I read this some time ago that most likely, and part of that reasoning is he didn't take full-grown mamas and daddies or male and female. He took babies that were, a cat can be 8 weeks old, dog can be 8 weeks old, and can survive very easily from being apart from mom and daddy. So if you do that across all the animals that would have been on that ark, all the birds, everything, where they're at an age where they can survive on their own, chances are they weren't breeding yet. But they would have all been a year and a half or so old by that time. Now, of course, I think dogs and cats and rabbits, they don't have to be quite a year old before they start breeding. So, and also what I read was, this is just a person's highly educated guess, and they have a lot more education than I do, was God kind of put them in a trance, so they were, can you imagine putting an elephant in a, 5 foot by 5 foot space, or even 10 by 10, and, for over a year, or even putting a dog in a kennel, something like that? They're going to get restless. And so maybe God kind of put them in a trance-like until they come off the ark. Again, I'm just telling you things I've read, and what I read was not proof perfect. The only proof we got is what we can read here. And these are just some possibilities. So, good questions, and if I ever find out the answers, I'll be sure and let you know. I just doubt that I ever find them out. Verse 20, Noah built an altar to the Lord. He took every clean animal, every clean bird, offering a burnt offering. The Lord smelled the soothing aroma, and the Lord said to himself, I will never again curse the ground on account of man, for the intent of man's heart is evil from his youth, and I will never again destroy every living thing as I have done. There's a statement in there that I would say is true for all time. The intent of man's heart is evil from his youth. There's only one thing that will make a difference in any human being: Jesus Christ. And man, there have been studies of siblings raised in the same home. One goes good and one goes bad. It's not genetics. It's the choices that we make, the friends that we make, and who we try to please and why we try to please them. And, we have all done things that we wish we hadn't done, especially when in our teenage years. But why do we do it? Well, the devil's good at tempting and deceiving. And so we think, that'll make us, I'll smoke that cigarette and make me look cool. And then you get addicted and you die from lung cancer by the time you're 35. It happens. But our heart is intent on evil. And when I say evil, it doesn't mean we're all going to go out and kill somebody or rob somebody. Evil is doing what God does not to do. Verse 22 says, while the earth remains, seed time and harvest, and cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease. And this is just continuing what God said, I'm not going to destroy the earth again. Notice he doesn't say, I'll never destroy man again. He does say, I'll never destroy every living thing as I've done, which means by flood. Doesn't say he won't destroy man or every living thing. Just not by flood. Verse 9, we can keep going for a bit. God blessed Noah and his sons, and he said to them, be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth. And notice verse 2, the fear of you, fear of mankind, and the terror of mankind shall be on every beast of the earth and on every bird of the sky, with everything that creeps on the ground, and all the fish of the sea, into your hands they are given. Do you think all these animals, creatures, feared man before they got on the ark? And can't you just imagine a little fawn, and they're walking, God's just leading them to that ark, and then they see Noah, and Noah says, go on in, and they go, ah! They're gone, right? To me, again, this is just my 2 cents, animals had no fear of mankind before this point. Why not? I'll show you. Verse 4. Or verse 3 and 4. Every moving thing that is alive shall be food for you. I give all you as I gave the green plant, only you shall not eat flesh with its life in its blood. If you go back into Genesis 1, verse 29, there it says, and God said, behold, I've given you every plant yielding seed on the surface, all the earth and every tree and every fruit yielding, it shall be food for you. So basically everything was a vegetarian. At this point, carnivores come into existence, including mankind. Now, I'm just reading and making observations from what I'm reading and going back and forth to the scriptures. You can argue with me. You can prove me wrong. I'm more than happy to listen. But just going by the text, line by line, like we have been doing, that's what I see. Is man a just vegetarians? The lion, the tiger, the bear were all vegetarians. How else could they have stayed on that ship for 1 year plus? You know, that lion would have said, that little rabbit looks pretty good, you know. Maybe that's what happened to the dinosaurs. They got on there and the animals ate all them. No, I don't think so. It's after this, the carnivores, the taste for meat comes into living creatures. Now, notice it says, do not eat its blood, or life with its blood in it. One, in New Testament times, the New Testament church has been established, and Paul and Peter are going out to the Gentiles. They had in Acts 15 what I call the first business meeting. And part of the problem was some of the Jewish Christians would say, oh, the Gentiles can't be saved. Well, of course, Paul has witnessed them be saved. Peter's witnessed them be saved. So they sent out a list of 3 or 4 things for the Gentile believers. And one was, do not eat food with blood in it. The other thing I want to point out is, why not? Why not eat food with blood in it? Leviticus 17:11. The life of the flesh is in the blood. And I, God, have given it to you on the altar to make atonement for your souls, for it is the blood by reason of the life that makes atonement. Now, atonement is where what pleases God. But the life is in the blood. What does the blood do in our bodies? Or do for our bodies? Maybe that's a better way to put it. It takes oxygen. Can our body survive without oxygen? No. It takes nourishment. Food, if you will. Not, it doesn't take an ear of corn, but it breaks it down and takes nourishment and oxygen to all parts of our body. Without that, what's going to happen to our bodies? We die. Life is in the blood. Don't eat with blood. Verse 5 says, surely I will require your lifeblood from every beast I will require it, and from every man, and from every man's brother I will require the life of man. Notice verse 6. Whoever sheds man's blood, by man his blood shall be shed. For in the name of God for in the image of God, God made man. You know what that's saying? Capital punishment. You take a life, your life shall be taken by mankind. I've heard the argument, well, if you're going to take this man's life because he took a life, then shouldn't the one who takes his life have their life taken and it just be an ongoing? No. It's God's law that if you take a life, and you can go through, you get into Leviticus and so forth and Deuteronomy, it's not just, if it was an accident, it's one thing. It's the intentional, on purpose taking of a life. that God is saying mankind shall take the life of the one who took a life. It's their punishment for what they are doing. And then just to close up that section, verse 7 says, as for you, be fruitful, multiply, and populate the earth abundantly and multiply it. So I'll stop there. The next section is about the covenant, probably the first covenant that you'll see, or first time you see covenant mentioned in the Bible. And this covenant is about the rainbow. So I said, we'll stop right